Happy New Year, everybody. It's Frito here for your Overwatch. Glad to be back. Blizzard is addressing the elephant in the room in Overwatch right now, and I don't just mean Mauga's massive hitbox size. He has been terrorizing top-level gameplay. We know that at the very least, but I'd be curious to see what his numbers and win rates are across the player base. My suspicion is similar to a character like Sojourn, who was OP for a while. The devs might have a bit of a balancing nightmare on their hands that I think they made worse with his damage profile rework that they did in that previous patch. I want to discuss more about that, but first let's take a look at the changes that we should expect probably next Tuesday. Alec Dawson says on Twitter, targeting early next week for Mauga changes, what to expect, survivability nerfs, ammo nerf, and more. Changes may be harsher than what's necessary. Why harsher? We've had some recent tech issues, a failed nerf hotfix before break. Yikes, they wanted to tune him back and it didn't quite go through, and they want to be the safe side of not strong. Okay, so he's been overperforming. If it's this harsh, then I'm going to guess he's overperforming at all tiers based on the data, but my issue with Mauga gameplay is that I feel a lot of players don't really commit to interact with his counter mechanics, because at least for me personally, whether it's in ranked or quick play, I have no problems dominating Mauga players. I wish they had super advanced stats like looking at your matchup against specific heroes. That would be kind of cool, wouldn't it? Or at least like map specific stats, Blizzard, you can get on that. But really, in most of my games, I make players switch off of Mauga. Or if they try to panic swap to him, I still win anyway. Of course, I'm losing to everything else, but I think Blizzard created a bit of a problem on their hands when they made a character that had lots of mechanics baked in, then changed the personality multiple times. So, if you remember my initial impressions of Mauga when we got to play him on that BlizzCon weekend, his spread was massive, and his range damage was inaccurate, but the damage numbers were high, which meant when he closed the distance, he melted things. But almost as if it was a challenge to me saying that he wasn't good at range, they made him far more reliable at shooting accurately at range, with the alternate cannons set them on fire for crit damage method. Then on top of that, they changed the spread of the dual cannons to be tighter, again, lower damage. But the problem with that is that it changed the damage profile and the spread and the time to kill to really only be good against tanks. The first version was good against squishies as well at extreme close range. In this new version, barely any squishy character is good to use the dual cannons on. And then another problem that I think they created for themselves is then Mauga became more reliant on the burning mechanic to guarantee crits to deal meaningful damage at all. With the one cannon at a time method against squishies, it takes so long to hit enough shots that usually the squishies get away. But they made the spread so tight that if you're a top level player with high level aim, you can kinda do it. Or at least if the enemy makes a mistake and plays out for too long, you can finish them. But this is where I think they missed a trick, because now that high skill portion of Mauga's gameplay, really you need top level aim to access. And then everybody else is just going to shoot the tank, which is why I think especially this version of Mauga, if you're a bottom 99% player going against him, all you have to do is not give him a big target to shoot. Manage your resources as Diva. Play a squishy DPS that's like a small hitbox, because that's going to require them to use the one cannon and have elite tier aim, which let's face it, they don't. Which made his gameplay rather boring, because then it's just going to be mostly about shooting the tank for most players. Let's review again the changes that will be coming. Survivability nerfs, ammo nerfs, and more. So when he says survivability, I'm going to assume the lifesteal amount goes down again. Ammo nerf makes plenty of sense to me. I have no idea why they increased it. That felt silly, because then he didn't have to choose his targets as much and always had extra ammo to lay into the tank. And when he says more, he doesn't say more nerfs. So maybe that means there's some reworking in there as well, not purely nerfs. I think that's safe to expect, because the problem they need to fix is how effective Mauga is for a high-level player who's got the aim to shoot at range, to just hold cover, play passively, punish aggression, and then utilize a really key ability that I was always so excited to talk about, Overrun, to get away. Overrun is far less interesting as an ability that's used to run away from ults. It's so much more interesting if Mauga's incentivized to get in on close range, which most tanks have to do to be effective. The devs were so worried in that December patch to make sure that Mauga wasn't falling over, so they increased his survivability and made him more reliable to play. With his damage, I don't think they foresaw the much worse conclusion of that, to just make him a camping hero. After thinking more about it, Overrun has a very special personality. Normally on tanks, to clear that much distance, it's attached to a short-range character, like Winston or Reinhardt. Both of them can use their big movement ability to clear lots of distance to go aggressive or defensive. But on top of that, Overrun has Unstoppable, which makes it like Fortify, which makes it good against ultimates. Lots of other tank characters, you drop ultimates on them and they are screwed, because a lot of ults have crowd control, or deal a lot of damage quickly, and then maybe can use crowd control to make the damage land where you want it. Well, Mauga can nope out of there like no other tank can, because every other tank with a movement ability doesn't also get Overrun. They need to fully dodge it with mobility, as opposed to have a no button and an immunity to crowd control. So I look forward to seeing these changes on Tuesday. I think generally they've done a decent job molding the game over time, but what I kind of fear is that they just shelf this very interesting character like they did Sojourn, because I'm still not happy with Sojourn's balance either, who's a character that I think doesn't really translate at all of the tiers like she could in a fun way, with too much emphasis on the highest skill tier aim. If a character's value is too much on that, it's going to be hard for them to compete at most tiers of play, but then dominant at the top tiers, potentially, which I think is the Mauga effect in a nutshell. I've also got a few problems with the fire mechanic. Since you have to hit so many shots into a target, that target needs to be in the fight long enough for you to shoot them that long, which is usually just going to be the tank. While the accuracy that they gave the single cannons is nice for being able to shoot squishies, at least for me, I feel I barely get the chance to really ignite them and hit lots of crits in them, because they're using movement to get away, they're getting around cover. If I do actually confirm a kill, they're usually like burning around the corner. This is why it's important to remember that there's a bit of a benefit to lowering the skill ceiling of some things. Because if that spread was wider, there'd be a range limit on how effective it was, requiring you to close the distance more often. And I'm curious what they could do with the fire mechanic to make it kind of more useful against squishies, but not as dominant against tanks. Because while I admit, having a tank that can hard screw over a Bastion feels amazing. A character that normally hides his head crit box, you can light him up perfectly, and the spread is tailor fit in order to deal with that character specifically, life-stealing your way to win the duel easily on a character that normally destroys tanks. That makes me happy, but it also makes Mauga farm other tanks too easily. Because whereas that spread that he has that is quite wide, sure, you're going to hit all those bullets in a tank, but normally your time to kill on that kind of spread, you have to aim it into their head hitbox. Well, now as Mauga, you just aim it at the center of mass and they're all crits. That's kind of ridiculous against the tank, I think. So I wonder if they could take some power out of that and put it into against squishies, but at closer range. That I think would be the more perfect version of Mauga that I would like. Okay, kind of a complicated video. I've been thinking about Mauga these past few weeks. The tank category certainly feels more robust as he is an option. I just think playing defensively at range with a runaway mechanic like this is double shield Orisa meta again is not the play for making Mauga a fun character to play or interact with. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to leave it a like, and don't forget to subscribe and click the bell icon to actually get notified when our videos come out. That's been it for me. I've been Frito for your Overwatch. I'll see you guys next time.